We are starting the today's session with the recitation of Holy Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن. خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. والنجم والشجر يسجدان. والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان. ألا تطغوا في الميزان. तर्जुमा वो नहायत मेहरबान है, तालीम फरमाई उसी ने कुरान की, पैदा किया उसी ने इंसान को, सिखाया उसी ने बोलना उसको, सूरज और चांद पाबंद है एक हिसाब के, और झाड़ियां और दरख्त इसको सजदा कर रहे हैं, और आसमान को बुलंद किया इसी ने, और कायम कर दिया मीज़ान अदल, ताकि न तजावज़ करो हद से निज़ामे मीज़ान में। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम। वी आर स्टार्टिंग द टुडेज सेशन। आज का जो मेन टॉपिक है वो यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स। आज के सेशन का हमारा जो एक्सपर्ट ट्रेनर है वो रिस्पेक्टेड डॉक्टर आजम अरस्तु साहब है। डॉक्टर आजम अरस्तु आप बोर्ड मेंबर ऑफ एस्पायर पाकिस्तान एंड मेंबर ऑफ National Idea Bank. He has also recently retired as a vice president of Boeing Space Division, with over 30 years of aerospace expertise, led high-impact projects in satellite communications, contributed to the major missions, including the International Space Station's electrical system, Jupiter, Moon's orbiter, and nano-satellite programs. He also recognized globally by top aerospace organizations, including NASA, ESA, and DARPA, and awarded the Boeing Technical Fellow and AI AA Associate Fellow distinctions. He is also a young professor at USC and UCLA, teaching satellite system design and space power system. He is currently president of Apex Consultants, advising on advanced aerospace and energy technologies. Respected Dr. Azam Arastu, over to you.
Thank you, Azarullah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum to all the budding entrepreneurs. So today's session is the third in the series of 12 seminars that we have put together from Aspire. Aspire, as for people who don't know, very quick 1 minute background of what Aspire is. Aspire group जो बनाया है हमने, the goal is to help Pakistan develop a knowledge-based economy. And Pakistan means Pakistanis, and specifically the younger generation, I think I'm most likely talking to today. आप लोग जो हैं are the future of Pakistan. There's no doubt about that. And so to keep you abreast of what is happening around the world, and especially in the field of entrepreneurship on startups, which is it's an area which is a perfect match for Pakistani youngsters to contribute to the knowledge-based economy in Pakistan, and not only contribute but actually to lead the economy. So there's a lot of work going on in other parts of the world. And what we are trying to do as an organization, as individuals, for people like myself who have got gray hair or have been out of Pakistan for more than 54 years, and have gotten some experiences in some major organizations around the world, and we want to share those experiences and and help the new generation be the leaders of tomorrow. So this 12 series lectures is to help you develop that entrepreneurial skills, which will help you in all parts. So we are all focusing on different aspects, and you all heard Hassan Sayed in the first lecture talking about entrepreneurship, talking about uh, how do you take an idea? Where do you find an idea? What do you do with it? And so on. Which is so entrepreneurship starts with an idea, but idea. A lot of people think idea is everything. Idea is only 1%. Sometimes I may think even less than a percent. Uske baad, the journey starts from there, and there is a whole ecosystem in which you take the idea and you move into to how to develop the idea and nurture it, you market it, you mature the idea, you build prototypes, you build certain systems, and then you market it. And then for that you need to have financing development, you have legal structure that needs to be developed, you have to have financing and accounting and all aspects has to be taken care of, the production, sales, um, and most importantly, the customer work relations and feedback. So ये जो इकोसिस्टम है, जो हम स्टार्टअप्स इकोसिस्टम्स कहते हैं, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इकोसिस्टम है, तो इसके there are many many facets, and you to be successful startup you really have to understand all parts. You can't just take one aspect and go with it, which is where most startups that fail, generally, if you look back and figure out what happened, they were not focusing on all aspects appropriately. So इस कोर्स का मतलब ये है कि हम जो अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट्स हैं उसको हम आपको इंट्रोड्यूस करें और आप तक पहुंचा दें, और वो ये बेसिकली हम टूल्स बताएंगे आपको कि ये टूल्स कौन से इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं जो आपको इस जर्नी में हेल्प कर सकें. वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ एनीथिंग, आप कोई भी जो काम करते हैं जिंदगी के अंदर, वो काम उसको बेहतर करने के लिए the most important thing is you have to measure what you're doing. You have to develop certain metrics जिससे कि आप अपने प्रोग्रेस को मेजर कर सकें. और एक मशहूर कहावत है कि what gets measured gets improved. So measurement बहुत ज़रूरी है. Anything you do in life. आप अगर मैं चाह रहा हूँ कि अगर मुझे वेट कम करना हो तो आई हैव टू डेवलप माई मेट्रिक. मैं उसका प्लान बनाऊंगा कि मुझे इतना वेट करने के लिए आई नीड टू हैव 2 pounds पर डे, वीक तक मुझे 3 pounds करें, एंड देयर शुड बी अ प्लान. एंड अनलेस एंड यू सी, no matter how best plans are, if you do not have those metrics in place and you monitor those metrics, things won't work. And that's certainly true in business world. So in startup world, we have things called unit economics. और आज मैं आपको बताऊंगा थोड़ी चीजें, ताकि instead of qualitatively measuring things और qualitative बातें कर रहे हैं कि भाई हम बिजनेस ऐसा बढ़ाएंगे, हम ग्रो करेंगे, हम सेल्स बढ़ाएंगे, हम प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी बढ़ाएंगे, सस्टेनेबिलिटी बढ़ाएंगे. द क्वेश्चन इज, how do you know you're sustainable? How do you know you can profitable? How do you know what your margins are? तो उसके लिए metrics आएंगे. Today I'm going to introduce you to those concepts. So तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज के यूनिट इकोनॉमिक्स है क्यों, है क्या, और क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है. So unit economics basically refers to the direct revenues and costs associated with a single unit of a product or service a company offers. So basically what we do is जो भी आप product हो, जो भी आप चीज बना रहे हो, जो भी आपके customers हो, तो आप उसको you have to boil it down to one single unit. एक सिंगल कस्टमर होगा, एक सिंगल विजिट होगा, एक सिंगल सेल होगी. तो वो you have to figure out if you can isolate the numbers and economics based on single, then you can extrapolate to the many. So it's very very important to get an idea of what एक आइटम की कॉस्ट है, तो उसकी कॉस्ट में क्या क्या मटेरियल कितना है, लेबर कितनी है, उसमें अलग अलग चीजें, पैकेजिंग कितनी है, मार्केटिंग, उन सब की कॉस्ट कितनी पड़ती है. वी नीड टू फिगर आउट all those things. So that's what unit economics is, and extremely important because it helps a startup understand how profitable their business is in a per unit basis. Also, with this, startups can gain insights into whether their businesses business model is viable and scalable. So these are, and I'll show you what those tools are, and we'll go through one by one. So, importance of unit economics. Why unit economics matter for startups? First of all, it helps determine scalability and profitability. मैं कह रहा हूँ कि ये चीज मैंने बनाई है, any widget है, any service है, anything I'm doing, how do I know is profitable, is scalable? And I'll show you what tools we use to do that. It provides insight into long-term business sustainability. हम जो भी काम कर रहे हैं, we want to make sure कि ये सिर्फ एक one time success now, you have to be successful for over a long period of time. Plus आपका, or you can be able to sustain it, you can do it repeatably. फिर these units and these metrics are very important in decision making in pricing, marketing, and growth strategies. Specifically for startups, they understanding things like cash flows and break-even points, बहुत important है, in evaluating growth strategies with limited resources. There is not a single startup जो कहे कि यार मेरे पास बहुत सारे पैसे बहुत हैं, मेरे पास I have plenty of resources. There is not a single one. If it is, then that's a very unusual one. Every startup struggles with resources, which is money, time, and people. So if you are struggling, that means you are in the right place. If you're not struggling with these limited resources, that means you don't have the stretch mechanism which are really necessary to grow. And also, when you want to raise money, your investor is going to ask you all these questions, जो कि मैं बताऊंगा अभी. They will ask you exactly your customer acquisition cost क्या है, आपके lifetime values क्या हैं, what your gross margins are, churn rate है, payback period है, contributions margins है, all these things. And I'm going to walk through each item one by one in specific details and with examples and give you some nice tools today. And if you can master those tools and you and have a very good grasp of all those numbers at all times, you will be a very successful entrepreneur. So let's get started. So there are many units that you can pick, but I have selected 12 key metrics. These are, I think, if you can have a very good grasp of these 10 to 12 metrics, you will have a very good idea of your business at all times. And not only you, your investors, everybody who wants and you want to raise money, they will ask all these questions in detail. And if you can, people who don't have good answers to these metrics will find very hard to raise money or convince investors कि मुझे पैसे दे आप. So not only for raising money, but for your own self to make better decisions, you have to have these 12 metrics very clear in your mind at all times. So today what I'm going to do is to go through each one of them in some detail, tell you what they are, what they mean, how you calculated them, इसकी importance क्या है, and give you some examples. Okay? So this is the heart of your presentation. So let's start with customer acquisition cost. Everybody, आप जाएं तो I don't know if you listen to Shark Tank and so on. Things they will ask about these numbers, and people who are really on top of these numbers will get funding. So let's start with customer acquisition costs. So customer acquisition costs, or it's also known as CAC, it's the cost of acquiring a new customer. Okay, so what does it take to get one new customer? And you have to know this number very clearly. And it's calculated by saying CAC is the total marketing plus sales expenses divided by number of customers required. Very simple. All these calculations are extremely simple, and you can put these in your spreadsheets. Very, very easy calculations, but you have to know exactly what those numbers are. So again, total marketing plus sales expenses divided by number of customers acquired. Very simple. Importance क्या है इसकी? Importance ये है कि high CAC can strain cash flow and profitability. So it is crucial to keep this number in check. So अगर आप एक कस्टमर है जो आपको पे कर रहा है ₹1,000 and you're spending 2,000 rupees to get him, you're not it's not a good business. So if you're spending 100 rupees to get 1,000 rupees customer, then it's a good you're spending the right amounts. That's why it's important to keep a very close eye on how much are you spending to get the customer. So customer acquisition cost. Let's take an example. In fact, what I've done is I'll give you 2 examples on every item. So let's take the first one, a SaaS company. SaaS, by the way, SaaS is like software as a service. अगर आपकी company है, आप software बेच रहे हैं, and you spend say $50,000 in marketing and sales per month, and you acquire 250 new customers, right? So what's the CAC? It's very simple. It's $50,000 you spent in sales and marketing. That divided by 250 new customers, the CAC is 200. Simple as that. Very simple. Second example, an e-commerce startup spends 120,000 on advertising and sales efforts in a quarter, acquiring 1,000 new customers. So the CAC is, again, the total sales and marketing number, 120,000 divided by 1,000, 120. Okay, so again, very simple calculation, but you have to have this number quantified and crisp in your mind at all. That means okay, you have to make sure you maintain a good log of how much you're spending in marketing, how much you're spending in sales, what your customers are every month or every week or every quarter, depending on your system. So then only you can get these numbers. So every investor is going to ask you first question, what customer acquisition cost kya hai? And people who don't know this, that means they have no idea what the business is. All right. So I will keep going through because there are a lot more, and then we'll take questions later. Second thing is, what is an average revenue per user, or ARPU, ARPU? So this one is, again, simple. This is the average revenue generated per user or customer. So आपने food delivery system करना है, तो आप typical you need to know how much an average customer, how much average revenue is generated per customer. You know, if it's $20, $30, या आप कोई widget बेच रहे हैं, कोई चीज बना के बेच रहे हैं, तो उसके आपको पता चले कि ये बेच रहे हैं कि उसको per customer कितनी revenue है, and so on. It's again, the numbers, formulas are very simple, but the importance is you have to have it. ARPU की very simple number ये है कि your total revenue if you divided by total number of customers. Very simple, nothing, no complicated stuff. So, but why is it important? It helps measure the revenue potential of a customer base, aiding in revenue forecasting. So it helps you develop revenue forecasting. It helps you कि ये मेरे customer हैं तो इतना बड़ा revenue आएगा next month में, next week में, next quarter में. So it helps forecasting your thing. So it's really important to have a good grasp of this number. Let's take a few examples. If you're building a social media platform, for example, and have a $1 million revenue and 100,000 users. So the ARPU is going to be, sorry, this should be divided sign here. 100,000, a million divided by 100,000 gives you 10. So sorry, I missed the divide sign here somehow. Similarly, on a SaaS platform generates $250,000 in revenue with 10,000 customers. The ARPU is 250,000 divided by 10,000, answer is 25, right? Simple numbers, very simple metrics, very simple equations, but key numbers. Then comes the next parameter called lifetime value, or it's also known as customer lifetime value. ये और CAC or ये CAC hai, some other margin, some other profitability margins, break-even points are the key ones. But this is a very important one. You have to understand this very simply. When you say understand, you see equations are very simple, but you have to know the feel of these numbers. You have to understand it. You could live, breathe every day these numbers. What is lifetime value? It's the total revenue a business expects from a customer over their entire relationship. Yeah, it's very important. Total revenue of a business expects from a customer over the entire relationship. अगर एक कस्टमर आपके लिए 10 साल तक है तो उसकी क्या वैल्यू है, वो कस्टमर अगर 1 साल के लिए है कितनी वैल्यू है, तो उस कस्टमर की टोटल वैल्यू कितनी है ओवर द लाइफ टाइम. दैट्स व्हाट दिस इज. तो इसकी फॉर्मूला इज वेरी सिंपल. इट्स एन एवरेज परचेस वैल्यू times average purchase frequency times customer lifetime. Okay, and when I see the example, you will understand it very clearly. So again, formula क्या है इसका? Average customer purchase value, average purchase value times average purchase frequency times customer lifetime. Very, very simple. Importance क्या है? LTV, which is the lifetime value, should ideally be higher than CAC for sustainable growth. So आपको sustainability के लिए, this is a very good metric. कि ये इसका ratio कितना है? You don't want lifetime value should be less than the customer acquisition cost, because then that's not sustainable. That means you're putting too much and getting too little out. So it's like LTV is how much you're getting out of the tank, and CAC is how much you're putting in the tank. So you have to get more out of the tank than getting it. So that's basically the mechanism. Examples, you'll understand what it is. An online subscription business has an average monthly revenue of, say, $20 per customer, and the customer stays for an average of 24 months, right? $20 per customer hai. Monthly he is paying $20, and वो 24 month तक है आपके लिए वो customer रहेगा. तो LTV क्या होगा उसका? 20 times 24, 480. Very simple. Take another example. A mobile app averages $15 in monthly revenue per user. So it's $15 a month आपका revenue है. And typically the customer lifetime is 36 months. So the LTV is 15 times 36, 540. All right. आपको मैं तमाम ये charts, I will provide them to you. So you have to you can keep them, use them later. But let me go through each one of them now. There is something called LTV to CAC ratio. As I said, समझे आप LTV is like आप एक tank में पानी भर रहे हैं, और CAC is how much you're putting in the tank, and LTV is how much you're taking out. So here it's very important how much to understand the relationship. For example, here there's a cost. You have a customer who pays $100 a year, yeah, and over a period of 3 years, he paid $300, and the cost to retain that customer is $50 per year. $50 per year you're आप spend कर रहे हैं इसको retain करने के लिए. That means over 3 years is 150. So the lifetime value of that customer is 150. So LTV is 150. But you're also spending $25 in marketing, and plus sales and special offers, you're spending $50. So the CAC is $75. So right now you can see LTV is, if we divide LTV by CAC, this ratio comes to 2. That means you're spending, you're getting back twice as much as you're spending. So that ratio you have to monitor. This is very important ratio. And for a healthy business, this LTV to CAC ratio should be greater than 3, right? आपको this is again a metric, आप check करते रहें अपने आप को, अगर ये ratio कम हो गया, then that means it's something wrong. You're spending too much in marketing, you're not paying too much to customer, you get better value. So again, this ratio helps you understand what your issue is with financially, and making sure that your business is healthy and scalable. On the right-hand side, I've shown a very simple cartoon graph where there's total revenue on left hand on the y-axis and time on the x-axis. And if I plot this this sloping curve is really the CAC, which always starts out high. Initially, CAC is very high, and yes, again, an important part of doing this over time is these numbers would change as you progress in your new venture. Initially, जब कोई चीज नहीं बनाते हैं, obviously you have to spend a lot more in customer acquisition costs, आपको marketing में, development में, तो customer acquisition costs will be high, and you don't have a customer till such time, and then की value कम होगी. So over a period of time, what happens is your customer acquisition costs should go down, and your lifetime value of the customer should go up. And so the break-even point is, this is where there's one when is equal, and then over a period of time that should go up. So up to a point, till it is 1, your profit is, you're actually losing the value, money, and when the LTV is greater than 1, you're actually making money. So this relationship you have to understand at all times, and keep a very good eye on this LTV to CAC ratio in your business. Let's talk about profits. You do all these businesses to have fun as well as to make money and to have margins. So profit किस तरह margin करते हैं? And you will see many terms in literature. People talk about gross margin, gross profit margin, operating profit margins, net profit margins. ये सब क्या चीजें हैं? So you have to, when somebody asks you what is your operating margin, an investor says, what's your operating margin? And you give numbers for gross margin, you'll be thrown out of the room, because that means you don't understand how to work this business. So it's important to understand these differences and calculate them in your spreadsheets all times. So, and I will go through each one of them. Essentially, okay, let's go. Gross margin. Gross margin, ये हमेशा सुनते हैं, gross margin is the profit made from each unit after deducting the cost of goods sold. By the way, cost of goods sold, we also sometimes call COGS. मतलब ये कि, again, the formula is so simple. Gross margin is really revenue minus COGS, which means total revenue आपने generate की, उसको जो रेवेन्यू किया, लेकिन उसमें से आपने कितना खर्च किया टू वो चीज बेचने के लिए, you subtract that as your margin. So again, revenue minus COGS is or revenue minus cost of goods sold is your gross margin. Why is it important? Because it indicates how much profit each unit contributes to covering the business expenses. So you have to make sure you have a positive margin. If you have low margin or no margin or negative margins, that means it's a bad business. You need to do something. You need to either increase your revenue or reduce your COGS. So that's why, So let's take a couple of very simple examples. If you have a coffee shop here which sells each coffee for $5, for example, and the cost of material and labor per coffee is $2. Gross margin is very simple, 5 minus 2, 3. An online retailer sells gadgets for $100 with COGS of $60 per unit. Gross margin, very simple, 100 minus 60, 40. So Again, the numbers, the calculation is extremely simple, but you have to understand. You have to understand आप revenue में क्या include कर रहे हैं, cost of goods sold में क्या include कर रहे हैं, and ये gross margin किस तरह से आई. Okay. Then there's another thing that you keep hearing all the time. It's called contribution margin. Contribution margin क्या चीज है? Contribution margin ये है कि the amount remaining from sales revenue after variable costs, which helps to cover fixed costs. So this one looks at variable costs. Variable costs जो चीजें हैं कि ये एक्स्ट्रा चीजें जो ऐड कर रहे हैं, एंड कॉफी बना रहे हैं तो उसमें आप एक्चुअल कॉफी की चीज है, शुगर है, तो आपकी जो शॉप की फिक्स कॉस्ट है, वेदर आपने नहीं एक भी नहीं बेचा या 100 बेची, कॉस्ट फिक्स्ड है, तो लेबर आपका है वो भी फिक्स होगा. तो बेसिकली सॉरी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वगैरह चीजें, दैट्स अ कंट्रीब्यूशन मार्जिन में जो वेरिएबल कॉस्ट taking out. Anyway, so this formula is simple: total revenue minus variable costs. Okay, a positive contribution margins per unit is essential for business viability and scalability. Again, if your margin is less or negative, you have a bad business. Couple of examples: a food delivery service guarantees $10 per delivery with variable costs, which includes variable cost includes like driver's fees, hai, packaging, hai, and so on. If the variable cost is $6, contribution margin will be 10 minus 6, 4. 4 is your contribution margin for, and make sure I'm only including the variable cost in here. And then similarly, the digital service provider charges $100 per subscription with a variable cost of 20. Contribution margin is 100 minus 20 is 80. So this is different to gross margin. This is contribution margin. Again, example here. Say if you're selling a product for $50 and the variable cost is 15, your contribution margin per unit is $35. Why is it important? It measures the profit items sold after direct costs. So really, after direct costs, it measures. So this is what you really are important. How much you have to. It's the contribution margin which really helps your business. So it shows the profitability of each sale to help adjust pricing a cost, and a positive margin indicates a healthy business. Now, I've again tried to explain in a simple chart these different margins. Let's take from the left-hand side. Let's take on the top. You have a sum income statement. You have some income total, and you have a revenue, for example, $100,000. Usme se if I take out for minus cost of goods sold, what do I get? I get gross margin. Remember? So you can hear, so from incomes, from the total revenue minus the cost of goods sold, you get gross margin. And or gross profit. It's also known as gross profit. If I take operating expenses from gross profit, what do I get is operating margin. Or you're left with operating income. Now, if I take out non-operating income and expense from here, what do I get? I get the pre-tax income. And if I, my pre-tax income, and if I minus the income tax from it, you're left with net income or your net margin. So you see, people have used different profits, different income numbers. They all mean different depending on what you're taking out of it. So it's important to make sure you understand what are you taking out, and then your net income is total is your income after you paid income tax and your net income. And if you have, say, 1,000 shares outstanding from your business, you divide by number of shares outstanding, and that's what gives you earnings per share. When you look at stock market and say, what is the earnings per share? That's this bottom number that you're showing. So this chart helps you understand what items I am including, what are my items I'm not including, and depending on that, I have a different margin or profit or income or revenue number. So I hope you understand that that's why these details are important. And when you are in front of an investor, he asks you about your operating income and you give an answer on your gross profit or your net income, he will immediately know that you don't know what you're talking about, and you'll be thrown out. So इसलिए you have to have thorough understanding, and the way to do it is to build in your spreadsheets different item for each one of them. So at all times, you have a pretty good understanding of what these numbers are over a period of time. Achha, now let's move into another area where you get some customers. How do you manage your customers? So uske liye some metrics are, one key metric is what's your retention rate. Retention rates really is the percentage of customers who continue using the product or service over a given period. It means it's really is a measure of how long can you hold your customer. Whether you're selling a product, whether you're selling a service, whether you're providing a whatever आप business आप कर रहे हैं. So it's important को first आप customer को लेके आए, which is the customer acquisition costs है, and cost उसको करने के बाद your idea is to retain them. आप उसको जितना देर तक रखेंगे, you आपका LTV बढ़ता जाए because it's multiplied by that. So retention rate is the customers at end of period minus customers required divided by the customers at start of period times 100. Okay. Customers at end of period minus new customers divided by the total number of customers at the beginning of the period. So whatever period you look at, you define that period and you work these numbers out. The example will clearly explain to you how they are calculated. Importance kya hai iski? Higher retention means better customer loyalty and often results in a higher LTV. So yes, जो भी customer आया उसको आप do whatever it takes to keep them as long as you can. And if your customer you're losing customers, that means something is not right. So you got to figure out why they're losing, why they're moving, and you want to hold them back. Let's take a couple examples. I'm giving you very simple examples, simple numbers, so the mission could be clear. You have a gym, and you own a gym, and you have 500 members, and then you acquire 100 new members, and ended the month with 550 members, which means आपके पास पहले 500 थे, आपने 100 और लिए, लेकिन end of the month आपके पास 550 बचे हुए हैं. That means something went wrong. Some people left also. So retention rate is what? Is 550 minus 100 divided by 500 gives you times 100 and 90%. So basically you managed to keep 90% of the original customers, but 10% have gone. So basically you lost 10%, but retention rate is you retained 90%. So second example, software company started with 1,000 customers and gained 200 new ones and ended the quarter with 1,050 customers. So retention rate kya hai aapka? 1,050 minus 200 divided by 1,000 is 85%. So, but you can do all these provided you keep those numbers up. In सब चीज को आप tally कर रहे हैं, you monitoring it, you keeping how many customers at all time. If you don't have the data, you can't calculate this. So that means in your spreadsheets, and you're doing whatever business you're doing, आप constantly इन चीजों को measure करते रहे. And ये जो retention rate will help you then figure out what to do. Sorry about this. Another interesting, a very important metric is churn rate. Churn rate and retention rate go kind of together. But what is churn rate? Churn rate is the percentage of customers who stop using product service within a period. So retention was how many you need to retain. Churn is how many you have lost. And churn rate is customers lost during period divided by total customers at the start of period. And if you have a high churn rate, that means it suggests that there are issues with the products or customer satisfaction, and of course that will impact your revenue sustainability. So you got to increase the retention rate and reduce churn rate. So churn rate किस तरह calculate करते हैं? It's really the kind of opposite of retention rate. If you're having a streaming business and you have 1,000 customers at the start of the month and you lost 50 by the end, churn rate is 50 divided by 100 50 divided by 1,000, 5%. You've lost 5%. An online platform had 500 users at the beginning of a quarter and lost 25 at the end. Churn rate is 25 over 500 times 100, 5%. So, and you have to, again, monitor this all the time, and you want to keep the churn rate as low as possible. Okay. Then break-even points. You keep hearing about break-even. Again, this is very important. A break-even point can only be calculated if you when you are measuring it over a period of time or a volume. What is break-even? A number of units sold to cover all cost, fixed and variable. So break-even point is fixed cost divided by price per unit minus variable costs per unit. So again, it's essential for understanding when the startup can expect to operate profitability. So again, investor will ask you all the times, आपका break-even point क्या है? And because when I'm investing in your company, I need to know are you already past the break-even point here? So I need to understand when will you start being profitable? So let's take a couple of examples. A shop has fixed cost of $10,000 and a unit price of $50 and a unit variable cost $30. So break-even point क्या होगा उसका? Or in other words, how many units that it has to sell to get the break-even? That means you got a base. So again, so some reason is dropping the division sign. So in this case, it's 10,000 divided by 50 minus 30, which is 20. His answer is 500. So it should be 10,000 divided by 50 minus 30 is 20 at 500. 500 is that means you have to sell 500 units to break even. And if you sell 450, you're losing money. If you earn 550, you're making money. So that's the break-even point. Our digital product has fixed cost of 5,000, a unit price of $1,100, and a variable cost of 60. The break-even point is 5,000 divided by 100 minus 60, 125. That means 125 is your break-even units. There's another thing which is payback period, which is kind of similar to break-even point, but it is actually more in line of how much, if I am spending जो basic मैंने pay किया है in the system, for example, CAC, as I said, is a tank. How much does it, how much time basically how much time does it take to recover the CAC? CAC is my customer acquisition cost. अगर मैं एक customer के ऊपर $100 spend किए हुए हैं, how much time do I get to get back? That's my payback period. Simple as that. So the smaller the CAC, the shorter the payback period. But you want to make sure your payback period as fast as possible. So it's really payback period is a time, whereas break even is both could be time as well as quantity of units. So payback period calculation is very simple. The total CAC divided by monthly gross margin per customer. Again, gross margin, not operating margin. A shorter payback period indicates quicker cash flow, which is beneficial for cash flow analysis. A couple of examples. A subscription box company has CAC of $50 and earns $10 per month. Payback period is 50 divided by 10 equals 5 months. Online retailer spends $200 to acquire each customer, who generates $40 per month. Payback period is 40 divided by 20, 200 divided by 40, 5 months. Another one is average order value, right? This is an average value of each customer order. So each customer comes in and orders that. For example, you go into a grocery shop, you buy 50 items, and the total value of that is say $200. So and you average on average you spend around $200 for that. So your average customer value is $200, and basically it's simply calculated as total revenue divided by total number of orders. So the higher average order value implies increased revenue per transaction, aiding in revenue growth. So you want to basically always do that. You want to make sure you AOV is as high as possible. Couple of examples: an online store has $50,000 in total sales from 500 orders. So average order value, AOV, is 50,000 divided by 500, 100. A meal delivery service generates $120,000 in revenues over 2,500 orders. So the average order value is 120,000 divided by 2,400 is 50. Okay, so I think that covers all the metrics that I wanted to show. These are the 12 key things that I wanted to talk to you about. Now let's see what can we do with it. Let's take an example of a case study of a company called Parkmart. Whatever they do, I don't know what it is. Let's say a Parkmart, and they tell me that it has a CAC of $1,500 or Pakistan rupees, an LTV of 10,000 rupees. Revenue per unit is 1,200 units. Variable cost per unit is 700 rupees. Fixed cost is 100,000 rupees. So I would ask you to go back and calculate the contribution margin and break-even points. Don't look at the answer here. I think well, anyway, I'm given the answer you have calculated, but go back and calculate these metrics and see if you get contribution margin should be 41.7% and the break-even point should be 200. Very simple. Again, from the calculations I've shown you, so in this case, the Parkmart is profitable per unit, but for it to be profitable, it must sell 200 units for break-even, because that's the break-even point. Now, those are all points and calculations and metrics I've showed you that you need to measure, but they're basically at a particular time. What is really also important is you need to not only measure it at any given time, but you need to monitor it periodically. Every weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, depending on what your business is. It's the trends of these metrics which really tell you a lot more about the business, whether they're going up, they're going down. You can understand the problems कैसी होती हैं, where you need to focus on, उसमें, where the problems are, where the revenue is. And helps you define your strategy to progress. So monitoring it over and I'll give you a couple of examples of that. It really helps you focus. Why is it important? It helps you track profitability. helps you optimize customer acquisition strategy, and it'll help you make much better decision making. Can be, where you want money, where you want to raise things, what customers you should check or look after, which one you should retain, if your churn rate is high, why are this thing, how you, um, uh, and then you identify what's the better cash flow management systems are. It helps you identify more cost efficient improvements, and it will help you develop strategic pivoting, meaning if you want to change from one strategy to another strategy, what time you should do this. It All these metrics and looking at the trends over a period of time give you a very, very good idea, and also helps you improve forecasting. Um, and and again, makes you into this data-driven culture. I mean, you have to be you have to live and breathe these numbers at all times. So a couple of examples of how these metrics look over a period of time. I like here. I mean, it's just simple charts. The actual numbers don't matter. But on the left, on this top quarter, I'm now looking at acquisition spend. I'm looking at different items like sales and marketing, rent related activities, employee related contracts, travel, cost of revenue, office expense, and severance pays, and so on. I look at various components every month, and I take a total number and I break down to each one of them, and then get a number. So again, you can see this is the acquisition spend. On an average, you can say your acquisition spend should be around 140K. That's about. But suddenly in August 23, it went up 260. So again, the spike. You need to understand why it happened, because it has effects on other things too. So again, trending is important. Here on the bottom, as I've shown, customers lifetime value, LTV. Again, you see LTV moving up. It is pretty constant, but suddenly in September 23, it went up to 7 million. And you need to understand uh, why it has gone up. Um, and going up is always good, but if it had gone down, you need to really understand. Similarly, here is the customer acquisition cost, CAC, on the top right quadrangle. Again, monitoring that over a period of time, ups, downs. There's a lot of information that you can come out of it. And similarly, the CAC um, payback time. You can see it's not coming. It's the trends. Over a period of time, you look at it and understand these trends are really happy. So I think with that, I think I've talked about enough about these metrics. Um, to summarize, uh, keep all these units well under control, completely understand what they are, measure them at different times, understand the differences, new minor differences between them, and then keep trends. So you should all have spreadsheets where you monitor, keep these things. The more information, the better, but at the same time, it has to be accurate information. So this is essential for whatever business you're doing, whatever startup you're doing. The better grasp you have on this, the more successful you're going to be. So with that, I end, and now we can open for questions.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable presentation. Now we are moving forward towards the Q&A session.